You are listening to the Charles Bonnet Syndrome podcast. My name is Shaimond Foy, and I'm here with my co-host Eva Potts, and we have a special guest today. Her name is Susan Michel. Susan, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing really well, and I'm so glad that we could get you here. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Well, me too.
So can you tell us a little bit about your eye condition that you've had and how long you've had it?
They discovered that I had retinitis pigmentosa. Obviously, that affects the retina, and macular degeneration, which I also have, which is rare to have a diagnosis of two different illnesses or what conditions, whatever you want to call it. So then we began seeing doctors. The doctor who was head of the Harkness Eye Institute accepted an appointment, and he said, well, you're okay, but we've got some things to discuss. And that was around 16 years ago. And he said, would you mind if I had some of my residents, my interns, whatever they are, would you mind if I called them in? And I was like, why would I mind? No. So he rushes out and rushes back in, and he's got 12, would you call them interns? I'm not sure what they would be, but 12 white jackets come in, and the doctor came in with all of these other young people, and they're all like, are you blind and you have this? And I'm like, yeah, somewhere you've gotten a bonus, because evidently at that time, 15 years ago, it was very rare. And certainly socially or business wise, there was not a person I could find. Sometimes doctors would know, but otherwise, it was pretty. I think I'm the only one that knew. I never met anybody 10 years ago who had heard of it. And of course, people at that point, because you're hallucinating, and it's hard to describe what it's like to talk and talk and talk like I am to you. And then that person says, well, sometimes I see you and sometimes I see you as a monster. And the doctor's reaction is, oh, really? So that's where I wound up. I began seeing different doctors, mainly in New York, and meeting research people and meeting people that would say to me, I sometimes feel like suicide. Is there something really wrong with me? So I am very interested, not just for myself, but for all the people that suffer from this. It's a very odd syndrome. I'm sure you've already found that out. So anyway, I hope you get a grasp of this and you learn how to cope with it. Somebody told me if they're with you in the bathroom, which is what my friends in the ether do, they'll see maybe 20 young men in the bathroom with me at 12 o'clock at night. And this doctor told me if there's a mob of people, you say, go home, you have a lovely family, and they're waiting for you. Your beautiful guide dog is waiting for you also. So whenever they line up on the wall and smile at you, don't smile back. Instead, be very rude, which is not my personality, but tell them that they should go home and go away. And that worked just a little bit. And then the therapist said, up your anger. And so the next time they all appeared in the middle of the night standing at the foot of my office, they were all, you go home. You don't belong here and you don't even have an appointment. So go home. And the doctor said, if you take your hand and you go right through it or push through it, you'll see your hand will, as you go like that, or I think you'll see that, they slowly back away. Spooky, but back away, and the person who's afflicted with or not goes back, and they disappear and they don't come back. So that's, but people have very different reactions to this. And to me, communicating and learning. Somebody said, you've got to develop courage. And I think that that's the key to a lot of people being able to cope with this and to have hope about it, that they can take charge themselves.
Yeah, courage can be helpful in many different facets of life. So that's definitely some good advice.
I started going to a therapist for this problem. Again, I thought I was going crazy, but I was sound asleep and something woke me up. And when I opened my eyes, there were 4 or 5 demons with pointy teeth and horrible little pointy ears who were crouched at the foot of my bed. That one almost killed me with fright. I learned to overcome that. And the other thing that came from that was the doctor said, pick something you love that makes you feel good, and you talk about that and forget about the horrible things that you saw. And so I tried it, and it did work. That fear and terror lifted, and instead I put my hands through my guide dog's fur. He always sleeps with me, and which he is supposed to as a guide dog. He's supposed to be near you. I said, go away. My dog and I do not like you. Go away. And they began to float back and disappear, and I've never seen them again. They're pretty consistent. And sometimes they can get pushy until I get loud. The problem is you don't want to get loud when you're seeing them at night because your grandchildren are sleeping in the next room. So that's the difficult part for me. And of course, the most difficult part of all is that I know I will never see my grandchildren's faces. That's hard. So,
Yeah, that's very tough. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I'm glad you get to spend time with him. I know some people's grandkids live in another state or so
Right.
it's good that they're able to spend some time with you. What are some of the visions and things that you see with Charles Bonnet?
Well, I think everybody on the planet who's got this talks about the consistency of the frightening. Like I love horror pictures, so there were always these monsters repeating what I see in the middle of the night.
You have a very great support system. You and Todd have been together for a very long time.
51 years.
51 years, that is a long time, and congratulations. And when you told Todd about your Charles Bonnet syndrome, or what you were experiencing before you knew it was Charles Bonnet, can you tell us how you got the courage to say something to him? Because I think what a lot of individuals who listen to this podcast or who have Charles Bonnet that are still living in fear of confiding in somebody what is going on with them, what gave you the confidence and the inspiration and finally the courage to say, Todd, I've got to tell you something?
Well, it had never been discussed because I was afraid he would leave me. I thought it would destroy, and I still feel guilt that I shut him out. He had no idea.
What would you say to another person to give them the courage to talk about their Charles Bonnet?
At a Christmas party, I asked all of my closest friends, and nobody had any. I totally hid it. But at that Christmas party, I gathered together maybe 10 people who I've known since I was a child. And while everybody else was drinking champagne and eating all the hors d'oeuvres in 2 seconds and leaving us with a bag of potato chips, I said, please sit down. You can continue relaxing and dancing and doing what you want, but I want to talk to all of you. And somebody got nervous and, are you sick? And I said, well, it depends upon how you look at that. It can be negative and hurtful, and if you allow it, it will remove you from the support of your friends. And none of them knew either. So I told them. We sat around a big couch, and I told them. And nobody blinked. Some of them said, we knew something was different. They didn't even characterize it as a disease or a syndrome or whatever. It was just really, and what about this and what about that? And you still, you're enjoying your life. Now that changed. I'm not saying it was just wonderful. It wasn't. But they were not horrified and, oh, that's ridiculous. You're not seeing things. Maybe I had too much to drink. But that very quickly went away, so that I was not shy or reluctant to talk to them about it. And we've had some very good laughs going out to dinner together. Sometimes, in order to avoid, I don't know what to call it. We've had some good laughs in restaurants when I've spilled the spaghetti down the front of my shirt. So, or I'm wearing a bib because we don't want, when we put it into a joke, not the research, not what it does to your life and losses, but more just being tough about certain very, very important issues. And answer back. If someone says, no, I've never heard of it, a doctor, then I wasn't very nice about it. I said, well, you owe it to yourself and to your patients. Get on the ball, and all you have to do is pick up your phone and read a 2-paragraph summary, and I guarantee you'll get interested in it. So that's what I do. I say, I want to tell you something. I don't wait for them to say, I think exactly the way you said. It was bright of you and brave to come out.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look.
And I think you're right. A lot of the medical community for sure is uneducated about Charles Bonnet Syndrome, and there does need to be heavier interest and definitely research. And hopefully we'll definitely get there one day. And I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later. What I want to say is that you have definitely been a huge inspiration, not only for the support group that we have every Saturday from 12 to 2 Eastern Standard Time with Dr. Gary Cusick. You've helped a lot of people by telling your story, and you've helped a lot of people by being open and allowing people to ask you questions.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a community for this to be recognized, for us to start finding answers, solutions, and start research. So you are a very important part of this process, and the information that you give and the advice that you give is very important to people. And they need to know that somebody can have Charles Bonnet for a very long time. This is not something that the World Health Organization is putting an 18 to 24 month period on. They need to really do some more research, because I don't think I've met anyone yet that it goes away unless their vision improves, or with surgery, or some miracle that their vision returns. As far as I know, that's the only way to stop the Charles Bonnet. Otherwise, you integrate it into your life, or you find coping mechanisms that help. Can you tell us about some of your coping mechanisms, Susan, for people that are listening?
Well, first of all, we're lucky to be here in New York, because when I look in the computer or any place else, we are at the top of people knowing what to do, and people, or they'll call me and I'll say, get in touch and get friendly with the New York State of Mind, and get in touch and get friendly with Foundation Fighting Blindness. There are so many places that have remained small, because there isn't enough money. It's a very, very interesting thing to be involved with. And people, they just need to be hooked, let alone to have the syndrome. I think when you look at New York, between the Foundation Fighting Blindness, New York State of Mind, I have a guide dog, as I mentioned to you, which I think he's saved my life many times. The they're all wonderful organizations, and a lot of things jump off of that. And not just me, but you asked me to talk about myself. I've spoken in the schools. The professor from NYU asked, not the professor, the president. Oh, they did it at NYU too. They both asked me to speak, doing exactly what you're doing, which is tell us how you feel and what this means to you. The coping mechanisms are there. I just saw an ad that both the Today Show and just that there were articles. So go after the newspapers. You're less likely, I think, to get. Although, I'd love to write a book about it. So I think it's get busy, get out there, and put a nice outfit on, and hopefully maybe even make people laugh. And the other thing that I think is really truly important is get your relatives involved. I think that's so important. Not only are you helping with their education, but you're letting them know that your family loves you and is willing to devote special time to you.
What would you like people to know about Charles Bonnet, Susan, people that are unfamiliar with the condition?
It is a very interesting, difficult syndrome because it's not immediately clear how many pitfalls and grieving episodes you have in your life. It's hard to imagine at first when you've never heard of it. Michelle Obama immortalized for me, I don't know who first said it, when going through quicksand, just keep walking, or a variation of that. And I've had surgery and pins and plates in my smashed elbow and my wrist. I've been hospitalized for 2 terrible falls down the stairs. And it hurts. It hurts. I feel like there's people that love you, and if you're angry, you cover that love up. So you have to have fun at least one day a week. Promise yourself that.
That's good advice too. Yeah, you gotta enjoy life as best you can, and I like that. It doesn't have to be every day, but at least one day. And if it
Yeah.
can't be the whole day, be one moment. Some things that you enjoy. You mentioned that you fell down the stairs. Was that as a result of Charles Bonnet syndrome?
Yes, I find that, or we should ask a doctor about that because that's a really good question. Before this accident, I would hold on to the railings and run down the stairs, which was I always did. And my coordination kind of disappeared after the Charles Bonnet got really entrenched. Now we've got the chair thing. My son put 2, what's it called? When you hold on to the railing and go up, whatever it was, I was like, why did that happen? Because I was depressed. My therapist had said, never take your hands off that railing. And I did it not once, but twice. Broken bones and surgery both times. So I got more involved and more, I don't know, I spend my life holding on to that railing now because it's a 2-story house. I also went to somebody who gave me tricks, and in my case, I'm really phobic about the stairs now. I go down the stairs with somebody behind me now. So there's no magic formula. You just can't be careless. You can't. It's so important. You'll get hurt, or there's a good chance you will. There are therapists that come, the New York something for the blind. I forget what it was called. They come out as often as you want them, and they teach you how to navigate around your own house. And one of the main things is chastising, whether they're adults or children, put your hands on that railing and don't run down the stairs. I have a 4-year-old grandchild. She runs down the stairs. So, Todd, if you're still there, he's the one yelling at the children. I can't bear to do it. But you'll see in your own home and your own life that there's things you have to adjust. So, I don't think there's anything clear. I think you make it clear coming to an issue of safety. And the wonderful thing also, if you have grandchildren, um, I constantly hear them, I'm doing it, I'm taking care of Noni, it's my turn. So it became obvious to me, without my daughter telling me, that they were taught from the time they could be taught. You watch out for Noni. Tell Noni to stay in the chair, and we'll bring her a drink. We'll bring her some soda. They definitely know how to behave around children, and a lot of people don't. Don't put your book bag down on the floor. You'll kill Noni. So, yeah. Other than that, I have no magic formula except show those people how much you love them. It's everybody.
Wow. We appreciate you sharing your story. It takes courage to share your story, and it can be helpful for other people to hear that they're not alone. And different people experience Charles Bonnet differently. So it's good to hear your perspective and what you're going through and the things you're talking about. Love your family and have courage. And all these things are very, very helpful. And to hear your perspective. Is there anything in closing that you would like to say? Anything at all that you would like to share about Charles Bonnet or any other thing?
I think doctors have got to be educated, number one. But I also think, number two, don't be afraid to be honest. I'm not saying you have to talk about yourself, but it does help. And I guess the last thing I'd say, sorry, this is so corny, but love yourself and love your neighbors. I mean, I've got on my cell phone the phone number of people that live blocks around me, and I did have an instant where I don't think I'd be alive today if I didn't have my phone on because I was alone in the house at the time. So, love yourself. I think you're doing a really hard job, and if you could get out there and talk to people, that's even better.
Great advice, Susan.